for the church, but I was at the last service. So next week, today is moving day, right? So next week we're going to be at Bueller Larson, and I just want to share. So Nikki, who was our contact with Bueller Larson, she had reached out to me earlier in the week and said, hey, can we get together on Thursday or Friday just to make sure we're on the same page and, show you how to get in the building and cross the T's, dot the I's. And so I went and I met with her on Friday afternoon, and I just wanted to pass on that they are looking forward to us coming. And the reason that they are is because it is a family-owned business, right? So Eastgate and Parkway and Weigel and Bueller Larson are all part of the same group. There's a management company involved of some sort because they have some properties out of state as well, but it's begun as a family business. They believe in community. They believe in Mandan. And so the Weigel building gets used a lot, but the Bueller Larson building does not get used anywhere close to the same amount. It's smaller, and they want it to be utilized. They want it to be part of the community, and so they have grief groups that meet there, and they do some luncheons and things, and of course do some pre-planning, and they're just happy because they see it as part of their vision for the community, that they want to be part of the community, and so having a church meet there is meeting that need for them. And so it's nice to be wanted, right? So and as I already talked, I've been talking for a couple weeks. It's going to be different. So your favorite seats. We made a change. This works better for us. So there's 2 tables in the back that people could sit at, but now we've got rows of chairs like this. So there's like 70 some chairs there, and it's it's different. It wasn't even what I thought it was gonna be, and it's cozy, and I'm excited. I like change sometimes, but I think it's going to be good. It's going to be very visible, and again, the fact that they are glad that we're coming, so that's a positive thing. The other thing is we don't want to miss the fact, because sometimes when we turn a page or we're getting ready to turn a page, we miss the history, right? And Churchill said, if we neglect to remember history, that we're doomed to repeat it, right? So there's some history in my life I don't want to repeat. So, but we want to look back, and we also want to be unbelievably grateful because we started on Main Street in Mandan in a bar. Yes, and it presented some challenges, sometimes on a weekly basis. Um, and it was different, but there were many pros to that as well. We ended up at the Baymont. We needed to find a different location when our time at the Baymont was coming to an end, and we weren't sure how that was going to happen. We weren't really finding what we were looking for, or that was going to be affordable, and this kind of dropped out of the sky. And it's been a huge blessing, and we didn't know how long we were going to be here. It's like 3 years and 9 months. That's crazy. Because it doesn't even seem that long. Yeah. No. So, and we even had a little bit of flooding at the beginning that took place, and that's part of, but that history is something that through the whole thing, God has been with us, and he's been leading us and guiding us. And I'm unbelievably thankful to David and to DeWise Perry and their graciousness to allow us to meet here. And it has been a good experience for them. It's been a good experience for us, and so we're very thankful. So a couple moving details. So if you're going to be helping, we talked about, I think we can get into 3 pickups, but um, mine is out here as well. And your truck looks great. Just I wanted to recognize you because I can see that you washed it. You did, yes, and it's shiny and just for this occasion. So make sure that we put something in his truck because he washed it for the occasion. It looked awful last week, but now it looks really nice. So
Some dusted roads, yeah.
yeah, it's all good. I just looked out the window and saw it. When we finish the service today, it will take us a little bit longer to tear down some of the stuff. The sound equipment will get broken down more so, and covers put back on the stage box, and we got bags for speakers and all of those things. And so that'll take us 10 minutes probably to put that stuff away. But when we get ready to go, we're going to be able to load things out right out here on this little love seat. I don't know what to call the thing, Chase Lounge, that sits outside our storage room. There is a black trash bag, and there are the shelves for our shelving unit. That will be one of the first things that needs to go in so that we can set it up. So if you're going to be helping with that, when we get to Bueller Larson, I will go in and I will get it opened up, and we have an elevator there. Yay. However, before I go any further with the elevator, it is a freight elevator. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. It is a freight elevator. It is not an elevator for people to ride. Children will never be permitted on the elevator. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And that has a rule coming from Bueller Larson, and it's coming to Bueller Larson from their insurance company. So just putting that out there. If you see children trying to go on it, please look out for their safety, and let's not do that. It's not that kind of elevator. And we will have ideally, we'll be able to do 1 trip up, 1 trip down on Sundays. So we have very limited access to the elevator because of the nature of what it is. And if you've never been in a freight elevator, it's not a hospital elevator. So the wall is moving, and it's right next to you. So so there we go. So it won't be unsafe, but
So the stuff he was talking about goes on last.
yes, thank you for, well, actually it'll go on first. So because the exit of the elevator will be on the opposite side of the entrance. Oh, yes. I got a lot going on in my head today. So, yes. Thank you. That's where I was going, and I got sidetracked. So, yes, let's make sure that the shelving stuff that's sitting out here is the last stuff to go into a vehicle. Don't put it into the front of a pickup and then load everything behind it, because somebody can be potentially setting that up while we are loading stuff onto the elevator. So,
Say if we need help with like some of that smaller stuff, I'd be willing to open up my Supro and have.
I think that I brought totes, and I think I've got everything packaged up. I think it should all be able to go into the back if we need a vehicle. Thank you for that. I may have misjudged space as well. So so be patient, be flexible. Yes. So, and that doesn't go just today, because it's going to take us a few weeks to figure out our systems. And so how we set up next week might look different than the week before. And so we just got to kind of figure some things out. We got to figure out acoustics, and it's a lower ceiling, so that's going to change some things for us. So it will be that culture of adaption that we had to develop right out of the gate. We want to take that adaption and we want to carry it forward with us. So that's enough of that. In 2 weeks, on October 12th, you may not have known this, the 10th through the 13th is referred to as National Faith and Blue Weekend. So National Faith and Blue Weekend, or it was developed in the organization that developed it, National Faith and Blue, seeks to basically create relationships in community between law enforcement and people in the community. They do that through religious organizations and through other community organizations. And so what they do is they take law enforcement and they bring them in and create an environment where there's some interaction, and you get to meet them and hear about what they do. And so this is something that we certainly promote at Crisis Care Chaplaincy, but between myself and Greg Carr, we managed to get Sheriff Kyle Kirkmeyer is going to come see us on October 12th. So not next week, not our first service, but the following service. He will be there. I'll be visiting with him, interviewing him a little bit. And so we back the blue. And I believe that the Bible demonstrates that in talking about those that have been placed into authority over us. And so we want to do that. We want to support that. I'm looking forward. I visited with him on the phone already. So just to let you know, and that will be at 10 o'clock on October 12th. So I need to let him know that as well. That's a lot. And a 45-minute sermon to boot. So FOMO, fear of missing out. I should have put a picture up here of Andrew from FOMO, but it's a acronym that we're very familiar with it, right? It's very common now, and it comes from a concern that sometimes we miss something, we skip something, we decide not to do this or not to be involved with this, and yet there's part of something in our head that goes, nope, got to be there because you don't want to miss out, right? We're going to miss something. Sometimes we do. Anybody ever miss something that they really wish they had? Yeah. Sometimes we miss out on things, and I think sometimes God's control in our life causes us to miss out on some things that we go, man, I can't believe I missed that, but maybe there was a reason behind it. When we miss out on things, it leaves us wanting and desiring to be a part of that, right? And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about FOMO, and we're going to talk about holy ground. I wanted to go here this morning in Exodus, so you can bet we're going to talk about Moses, Exodus chapter 3. Many people, many pastors, theologians refer to this as Moses' calling. And it's not just these 6 verses, it's kind of mostly all of Exodus chapter 3 and a little bit after that as well. So we're going to find out quite a bit about Moses today, just in 6 verses. And there's something very much here for us to apply to our lives. And we're going to spend some more time in Exodus chapter 3 next week as well. So this is kind of setting the table for where we're going next week. So Exodus chapter 3, starting in verse 1, it says, "Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned." I have heard this story 1,000 times in my life. I've seen it on the flannel graph at least 100. We need to bring the flannel graph back, but the first thing that I thought of here that I noticed, because context matters, detail matters, is I asked the question, well, what was Moses doing? Moses was living his life. That's what he was doing. His father-in-law owned a bunch of sheep. Moses was taking care of those sheep. And it's also interesting to me that it mentions that his father-in-law, Jethro, was the priest. Well, part of the way that they treated the priests is that the priests would not have been doing the shepherding of the sheep, that others would shepherd their sheep for them. And so Moses was shepherding the sheep, minding his own business, and he moves them to the area that he moves them, probably because there was grazing grass there. He didn't go there because there was a Sonic or something like that. He moved them there for a very practical purpose. Moses was just living his life. But while he was living his life, while he was going about his day-to-day stuff, because this day was no different for Moses than any other, but Moses was paying attention. He could have been herding these sheep with blinders on. But we read in the account that Moses notices that there's a bush burning. This is unusual. It's not supposed to happen. I've seen many wildland fires in my days, both living here and in South Dakota and out in Oregon, certainly. And bushes burn. And especially if they're Scotch broom, they burn really well. And when they burn, there's something very interesting that happens, is that eventually the bush isn't there. In fact, if we look at the picture, not only do we see the flames and we see some of the bush remaining, but we can see the black that is already developing, because as it burns the ground and it burns the bush, it not only kills it, but it consumes it so that it's not there. And what does the Word of God say? That when Moses is herding these sheep and he sees this burning bush, what is the thing that he notices about this burning bush? It's not consuming the bush. Folks, that's unusual. Scientifically, that's not supposed to happen. So as most of you know, I spent 15 years in emergency services. Part of that was with the fire department. I ended up as the training officer and led our department, or got them credentialed as firefighter 1. So I get to dip into my fire science background because we get to talk about fire. That's exciting to me. So the model that we use now to describe fire, we used to use something called the fire triangle, and it's not that it's not true anymore, but we've added another component to it. It is called the fire tetrahedron. Now that sounds super complicated. It sounds like it should be a weird shape, but what it means is that it's still a triangle, but really it's a pyramid because it has a bottom. And so in order to have fire, you need to have these components. You need to have heat. That's why things don't burn well in the winter, right? Doesn't mean that they can't, but that heat has to be generated somehow in order for them to burn. You need fuel. In this case, it was a bush, right? You need fuel because that fuel is the thing that's burning. This is why when you go camping and you have a campfire and you put a log in it, if you don't continue feeding the fire more fuel, the log burns up and the fire goes out. That was fun, right? So you need the fuel and you need oxygen. It's amazing that when we talk about simple fire starting, we can go very basic. We can take 2 sticks and rub them together to try and start a fire, right? And what happens when we rub the sticks together? They get hot, right? They produce heat. And then we don't use a log. We use kindling of some sort. Maybe it's a little bit of grass, some dried leaves, something like that. And we can rub them together, or in modern times we would use a lighter, but we could use flint too, right? And you get that spark and you get the kindling going, and then you start to add bigger fuel to build it up. And then what are you doing when you start to get that spark and you start to get it smoldering a little bit? Right? And the fire gets bigger, right? It needs oxygen. And without oxygen. Now you go, really? Well, the last part, the bottom of the tetrahedron, is the chain reaction. This is the science that when you have those three components and they are continually happening, you have sustained fire. If you knock out any of those, the fire goes out. Well, this is what fire science method, extinguishment methods are built on. That's how we know how to put out fire. We don't go, well, I don't know. It doesn't go out. This is why we use water, right? Because when we put water on a fire, it drops the temperature because the water is cold, right? We can remove the heat. If we wet the fuel, does wet wood burn? No, right? We can also remove oxygen from it, not so much with water, but this is why they invented firefighting foam. Or we could use a extinguisher and we spray dry chemical over the top. This is why you take that fire extinguisher, pull the pin, aim, squeeze, sweep. It's like I've memorized that in my sleep, right? And we go over the top of it and we put that blanket of powder on it, and what it does is it creates a barrier that no longer can oxygen get to it. It can't sustain a flame, and it goes out. Folks, I don't want us to miss the fact that this was highly unusual. This was miraculous. For a bush to, first of all, for a bush to be burning in the middle of the desert is a little odd, right? So at first I would have went, that's different. But then Moses, paying attention while doing life, goes, something's happening over there, and the bush is not being consumed. And then I don't want us to miss the last part there. It says that he turned aside to go see this thing. So he's living his life. He's paying attention and he sees something and he stops what he's doing to investigate. Let's go check this out, right? Verse 4. When the Lord saw that he turned aside, don't miss that part, right? Moses turned aside. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called him out of the bush. Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Then he said, that's referring to God, do not come near, take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Oh my word, I could do a whole sermon series. We're not going to this morning, but God's message to Moses that day, I don't want us to miss that it was important. Number one, we know that because he says, Moses, Moses, and any time in Scripture that something is repeated, it has significance. He did the same thing to Samuel. Samuel, Samuel. Jesus said, truly, truly, I say to you, right? It's important when it is repeated. The message that he brought to him was important. And the other thing that immediately is noticed is that he says, what? Take your shoes off, because you're standing on holy ground. I said, that's interesting. What made this ground holy? I mean, the ground's a little weird because it's got a bush that's burning that's not being consumed, right? That's notable. Well, where he was standing, in the ESV, it refers to it as Horeb, the mountain of God. Horeb and Sinai, Mount Sinai, are the same thing. They're the same location. It's a difference of name because of the language that it was written in. And so when the Bible refers, some translations will say Sinai, some will say Mount Horeb. They're talking about the exact same place. It has significance. In fact, in Exodus chapter 19, we find out, this is after Moses accepts the call. Can you not accept a call from God? I feel like that's a no. because he's just going to come back, going to keep hounding you. He sends Moses to Egypt to speak to Pharaoh about releasing the Israelites, right? And so we read in Exodus chapter 19, this is after all the plagues, and Pharaoh finally says, get out. It says, on the third new moon after the people of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, which is about 2 months later, on that day they came to the wilderness of Sinai, or we could put Horeb in there, right? They set out from Rephidim and came to the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. There Israel encamped before the mountain, while Moses went up to God. So after captivity, after Moses completes his task, and they come out and they wander in the wilderness for 2 months, they end up coming back to the same place of the burning bush, where God said, take your sandals off, Moses. This is holy ground. And it says Moses went up to God. So Moses went up the mountain. This is Mount Sinai. Anybody remember what happened on Mount Sinai? The 10 Commandments, right? So then I got to thinking about that, and I was like, okay, so he's pointing out the fact that this very geographic location that Moses is in Exodus 3 and in 19 is the exact same spot. So I was like, oh. So then I started Googling and researching and reading. And in Joshua chapter 5, Moses is dead. Joshua is the new leader of Israel, and they are getting ready to go to Jericho. Different geographic location. In Joshua chapter 5, verse 15, it says, and the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, it's an angel, folks, right? It says, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. And so I said, wow, wait a minute. Is this different? Is this a contradiction? Is there more than one holy place? Is there a whole bunch of holy places? Are all the places holy? Because the obvious question is, what made it holy ground? What made it holy ground? Oh, my word. Well, number one, it wasn't geography. Because not only do we see it with Joshua, but there's many other places, and we see the Israelites build altars and things to places where God did significant things. So what made it holy ground was not geography. It wasn't about a map. And folks, it wasn't a building. It wasn't a building. And you hear me talk about this a lot because the church is not a building. You're the church. And it doesn't matter whether we're meeting here or we're meeting on Sunset Drive at Bueller Larson, or we're meeting at the Baymont, or we're meeting at the Strawberry, or we're meeting in somebody's basement, and it looks more like a Bible study. It wasn't the building, because they weren't in a building. It wasn't the bush that made it holy ground. It also wasn't a feeling, because sometimes we get that too, right? Well, boy, today's service was great, or I went here and I went to this service or this event or this concert, and oh, I could just feel the presence of the Lord. It's not a feeling. Now, that can help. That can be part of it, right? So what made it holy ground was not the geography. It wasn't the building. It was it wasn't a feeling. What made it holy ground for Moses, what made it holy ground for Joshua and all of the other times, and folks, for us, what makes it holy ground is God's presence. That's what made it holy ground. God said, Moses, I don't want you to miss the significance of this message that I'm giving to you, that I'm sending you to Egypt, to Pharaoh, to tell him to let the Israelites go. I don't want you to miss this. This is important, and what makes this holy ground is because I'm meeting with you. I'm meeting with you. See, the truth is, we're standing on holy ground. And it's not because this building is 4 years old. Ooh, it's a new building. It's holy ground. If we built our own church, woo, yes, Lord. If we built our own church, it's not holy ground because we bring out gold shovels and we dedicate it at the beginning. Is it good to do that? Sure, absolutely. But that's not what made it holy ground. What makes it holy ground, and the reason that when we walk out of here today and we go to lunch or we go to see family, it's holy ground because of God's presence. That's what makes it holy. It's not us. It's not the walls. It's not our service format. It's God's presence. Which means if God's presence isn't there, then it's really not holy ground, right? We don't want to miss that. So I can stand here and I'm perfectly comfortable taking my sandals off because this is holy ground. And what this is a church that from the beginning said, this is God's church, what he wants to do with it. And if he's going to move us around, he's going to move us around. And if that's going to make us uncomfortable, then that's going to make us uncomfortable because he's driving the boat. We don't want to miss that. We don't ever want this to be something that doesn't include God's presence. Because when we do that, we're missing the mission and we're actually missing the blessing, right? The other thing that we read in this section is it says that Moses was afraid and he hid his face so that he couldn't look at God. Words always matter. So I was like, here's one of those afraid things, right? Because we talk about the fear of the Lord. And so when you dig into it, and now we're talking Hebrew, not Greek, the Hebrew word is Yahweh, and it means, yes, it means fear, to be afraid of something, but it also carries with it the connotation of standing in awe of, or standing in awe with fear, reverence, and honor. The reason that Moses was, in our English Bibles, afraid, the reason that he was fearful is it was fear of the Lord. He wasn't shaking in his boots. Moses understood who God was. It's why he hid his face. I can't look at God, right? I'm not worthy to look at God because of who he is and who I am. He is holy. We are sinful. Well, that sucks. Guess what? There's a solution. There's a solution. It's why he sent Jesus to die on the cross and to pay the penalty for you and me. And it is our faith in Jesus Christ that now all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, we are children of God. We've been adopted into his family. And now all of a sudden, this is why we don't need to be afraid of God, but we need to have that awe, that reverence, that understanding, that fear of the Lord of who he is, because it doesn't change. He doesn't become, hey, it's my buddy. You know, Bible says, like, God says, or excuse me, Jesus says, he called us friend. But we don't want to lose who he is. We want to make sure that we understand that, yes, he is loving, he is accepting of us, but we don't want to miss who he is. Which leaves us with the question for all of us. Moses understood who God is. Do you? Because this can absolutely be life-changing for us, because when we understand who God is, this is why This is why we are on a narrow path. This is why we're called to live differently, and it's not the way of the world. It's different. It factors in that when we know who God is, our desire is to worship him. Our desire is to glorify him. That's where that comes from. Well, I'm not supposed to do this, or I'm not supposed to do that. It's not about the not supposed to. It's about waking up and going, God, it's Monday. I don't know how, because I know what my day looks like on Monday. I don't know how, and I don't know how this is going to look and how I'm going to have the strength to do it. But God, let my Monday, let the way that I live my Monday glorify you. Not because I'm trying to get brownie points or earn my way to anything, but because I want you to be glorified by the way that I live my life, because of what you've done for me. See, Bueller Larson can be holy ground. And what will make it holy ground is if we allow the presence of the Lord to be there. The strawberry was holy ground. Like literally, sometimes there's a hole right in the middle of the floor. Oh. We'll let it go. The Baymont was holy ground because we allowed the presence of the Lord to be there. Our lives. This isn't just about this church. Our lives can be holy ground if we allow the presence of the Lord to be there. Because he doesn't force himself, right? Yeah. Pray with me this morning. Heavenly Father, again, we praise you for who you are. We praise you for sending Jesus. Help us to see our lives as that holy ground that becomes holy because we allow your presence to be in our lives. That it permeates everything that we do, what comes out of our mouth, the things that we do with our hands, our work ethic, the way that we do things. Help us to better reflect you. Not so that we can get brownie points, but simply to worship you through the way that we live our lives. Help us to take off our sandals because we are standing on holy ground. In Jesus' name, amen.